Revising. Revising is one of the most important things that you will do anytime you write anything. You never write something one time and turn it in. It doesn't matter if it's a job application letter or a formal essay like you've been working on. You've got to take the revision step. And there are actually a couple of different parts of revision. The very first thing you need to do is think big. Think about the global issues in your paper. In other words, what's the purpose? That's one of the first questions you should ask yourself. And for this class, it's, did you fulfill the assignment? Or are you writing something that wasn't even asked for? Are you doing what you were asked to do? And that's your purpose, and you need to make sure that you are. Now, in here, because I look at so many stages of your writing, I pretty much know whether you're on track or not, but that's something you should always check for in other classes. Are you meeting the parameters of the particular assignment? Focus. Does your essay have focus? This is when you check to make sure you have a thesis. Now, hopefully from the very beginning you know that you have this, but do you have a thesis statement? Is it in the right place? Make sure that your thesis is there, and then make sure that all the paragraphs are unified. In other words, that they support that thesis. Do you have a paragraph that doesn't really fit what you're trying to do? Do you have some sentences in a paragraph that don't fit what you're trying to do? In other words, examine the focus and make sure that you have one and that you're sticking with it. How about your organization? Do you have good topic sentences? Do those topic sentences explain or develop some aspect of your thesis? And do you develop your thesis in the order that you say you're going to develop it? Do you have a logical reason for putting the paragraphs in the order that they're in? Make sure that you don't have any paragraphs that are way too long or way too short relative to the other paragraphs in the paper. Content. Are your paragraphs well developed? Do the paragraphs support the topic sentence? Are they persuasive? Is there any paragraph that you need to develop further? Have you answered all the questions that your reader could have? Is there any material in there that's irrelevant or redundant? And again, that goes back, the irrelevant question would go back to unity. Redundant, have you just said the same thing a couple of different ways? Do you have well-developed paragraphs? Point of view. Do you remain in the same point of view throughout the essay? If you start writing in first person, do you finish the whole essay in first person? You don't need to be switching back and forth between first and second and third. You need to pick a point of view, typically first or third, and stick with it. And have you remembered your audience? Are your ideas going to be clear to the reader? And are they going to inform the reader? Remember, we talked about the reader hates to be confused and hates to be bored. So, are you clear? And are you giving the reader something for reading the paper? Have they learned something, in other words? Please don't waste your reader's time. So those are the global issues, and sometimes these happen as you're writing. They can happen in sort of a circular way. You can write something and then go, that doesn't fit, and take it out. But the point is, once you feel like you have a draft that's acceptable, then you check for these things. Once you check for these global issues, you need to drill down and focus on sentence level issues. In other words, sentence structure. Do you vary your sentence structure, or do all your sentences begin with the same word? That doesn't make for a very interesting paper. Do you have variety in your sentence structure? Do you have some compound sentences? Do you have some complex sentences? You don't want a paper full of simple sentences. You need to have some variety in your sentence structure. How about word choice? Are you using the best word? Can you eliminate 4 words and replace those 4 words with 1 word? Are you using active voice verbs? All of those things are word choice. Do you know what every word you used means? Okay, if you're not sure what a word means, don't use it until you look it up to verify. Make sure you're picking the correct words. Also make sure that you're not using slang unless it's somehow appropriate to what it is you're talking about. Your writing voice and your speaking voice are often different, so you need to make sure you're making that difference in your writing. Grammar. Do you have any grammar issues? You don't need subject-verb agreement problems. You don't need fragments. You don't need run-ons. You don't need comma splices. Have you proofread and checked for those things? Punctuation. Are your commas in the right place? Are your semicolons used correctly? Do you use a question mark if you are asking a question? Mechanics. Is the paper formatted correctly? Are you using the right font? All of those things go into the mechanics of the paper. Finally, spelling. Are all the words spelled correctly? There's nothing worse than turning in a paper with a bunch of misspelled words. It just screams that you don't care and that you were too lazy to do anything about it. And finally, don't trust spell check or grammar check. Spell check can be useful if you understand that it cannot catch a typo. So if you type form, F-O-R-M, and you really mean from, spell check isn't going to catch that. And that's still going to be a misspelled word. Grammar check is terrible. The computer software cannot anticipate every type of sentence you might write. And it's very, very possible and very likely, and it happens quite a bit, that the computer will prompt you that something is incorrect, and really there is nothing grammatically wrong with the sentence. So trust your own grammatical prowess and know that you know more about grammar than the computer software does. So please make sure that before you turn your paper in, that you have looked at the global issues of your essay as well as the sentence level issues of the essay.